Welcome back to Dieu Han RV, where every quiet moment hides a louder story. Before we begin, how's your day going? Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We read them all with love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Today, things start out calm. Than is helping Dieu Han fix the broken fence, but could peace be just the beginning of a new storm? The sound of wood splitting, the rhythm of hammer hitting nail, and the sun casting soft light on Dieu Han's little yard, it all felt like a dream. But sometimes, dreams are too perfect to last. Beneath the calm, hearts are unsure, tensions quietly brewing. This is not just a story about fixing fences, it's about what finally breaks when no one expects it. Then moved quietly, focused on every plank, every measurement, as if rebuilding more than just wood. Dieu Han handed him tools, grateful for his presence, yet deep inside, she sensed that calm days like this were borrowed time. The storm doesn't always show up with thunder. Sometimes, it begins with silence. Dieu Han smiled as she wiped sweat from her brow, watching Then adjust the fence with care. There was a rhythm to their silence, like two people quietly stitching their own pasts back together. But inside the house, Trin watched too, and not everything he saw brought peace. Sometimes, love feels like competition, and what follows next might not be kind. From behind the curtain, Trin's expression changed. Every glance between Then and Dieu Han, every laugh they shared, etched deeper into his chest. He told himself it didn't matter, but his heart said otherwise. Sometimes the quietest homes hold the loudest tempers. So don't be fooled by the calm. This episode will unravel threads tied too tightly for too long. Old wounds, misunderstood gestures, and a fight Dieu Han never thought she'd face. Stay tuned as tension bubbles under smiles, and a single sentence might change everything. Like, share, and subscribe to Dieu Han RV. It's about to get intense. The house echoed with the sound of teamwork. Then and Dieu Han worked side by side, fixing loose boards and painting faded walls. There was a calm rhythm between them until Dan arrived. Tool belt in hand, smiling warmly but with eyes that searched. He didn't come just to help. He came because he still felt something he wasn't ready to let go of. With Dan joining in, the pace quickened. Jobs that would have taken hours finished in minutes. But something else sped up to glances, gestures, and spoken tension. Then noticed how Dan moved closer to Dieu Han, how he laughed louder, offered to carry more. It was no longer just home improvement, it became a quiet war of presence. Who meant more to her? Dan reached for a brush at the same time as Then. Their hands touched, briefly, awkwardly. Both men exchanged a glance, not angry, but loaded with history. Then turned away, choosing silence over confrontation. But his thoughts raced. He had come to protect Dieu Han, not to fight for her. Or had his heart changed? Dieu Han noticed the subtle shifts. The way Then stood stiffer, the way Dan glanced at him too often. She kept her eyes on the task, but her heart was watching something else. She didn't want to be the cause of conflict, but deep down, she felt something bloom. To be cared for by two good men, was it a blessing, or storm waiting to break? Then hammered in the last nail of the fence, sweat trickling down his neck, but his eyes kept drifting towards Dieu Han. He hated feeling unsure, but Dan's presence stirred things up. Then had always been the silent protector, the steady hand, but now he felt the ache of wanting more, wanting her to see him differently. Dan took a step back, watching Then from a distance. He remembered the days he was the one Dieu Han turned to, but he'd left. Now, he wanted a second chance, and seeing Then beside her was like watching his past slip away unless he did something to take it back. Dieu Han handed Then a cold drink, their fingers barely touching. It was nothing, yet Dan saw it, and it meant everything. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. His heart felt the sting of distance, of coming back too late. But he wasn't ready to give up. Not on her. Not yet. The tension boiled over without warning. A single harsh word from Then, and Dan snapped. He pushed Then hard. The older man fell backward, dust rising in the air as tools clattered. Dieu Han froze for a second, shocked. Then she rushed between them. Stop it. What are you two doing? This isn't why we're here. Her voice trembled, but it was the only thing that broke the silence. Dan's breath was uneven. He didn't look at Dan, but at Dieu Han, eyes full of regret. "I didn't mean to," he murmured, barely audible, then sat up, brushing dust from his arms. Silent but steady, no fists, no shouting, just disappointment hanging in the air. Thicker than the summer heat, Dieu Han looked between them, her hands trembling. This wasn't what she wanted. Not wounds in the place she called home. She had hope for peace, for kindness to grow, now. "It felt like something broke," she whispered. "If helping me turns into hurting each other, then maybe I don't need help at all." Dan stood, finally breaking the silence. "I'm fine. Let's move on." His tone was calm, but distant. He didn't look at Dan. Instead, he walked toward the tools, picking them up slowly. But the bruise on his arm wasn't as deep as the one settling in his chest. Not from the fall, but from what was falling apart. Dan stayed rooted in place, ashamed of what he'd done. He looked at Dieu Han, but her eyes didn't meet his. "I just wanted to help," he said, but it sounded like an excuse. His heart beat with a sick rhythm, knowing that this one action might have cost him everything. Despite the tension, they went back to work. Tools clinked, wood creaked, and sweat dripped quietly. The fence neared completion, each stake a fragile truce between them. Suddenly, Dan paused. "We're out of nails," he said. Dan stopped, brows furrowing. Neither moved. No one volunteered to go alone, because leaving now meant leaving Dieu Han with the other. "I'll go get them," Dan offered. Dan immediately replied, "I'll go too." Their voices overlapped awkwardly. Dieu Han looked up from the porch, confused. "You both go in." Dan nodded quickly. "Yeah, just to make it faster." Dan didn't argue. It was strange, this silent competition. Wrapped in polite gestures and in spoken fear, Dan finally spoke. "You like her, don't you?" His voice was even, but his eyes betrayed him. Dan didn't answer right away. They hung heavy between them. "I respect her," Dan said. That wasn't a no. Dan pressed his lips tight, as if holding back more than just words. While Dan and Dan were away, Trin wandered into the garden behind the house. The scent of ripe durians filled the air, mingling with the soft clucks of chickens. He frowned, hungry and annoyed. "All these chickens and not one meal," he muttered. He kicked a pebble, frustrated. Then, spotting a large durian tree, his eyes lit up with curiosity. Maybe a fruit would make it better, and maybe impress the others. Trin grabbed a knife from the kitchen, glanced around, then made his way back outside. The durians looked heavy, but he chose to that seemed just right. With some effort and a grin, he cut them down and placed them on the ground. "These are for Dan and Dan," he whispered to himself. "They'll love this." He imagined their impressed faces. Just a little help, and I'd be closer to being someone they respect. As Trin wiped sweat from his brow, a voice behind him called out, "Trin." It was Dieu Han. She rushed over, eyes wide with panic. "What did you do?" She looked at the fallen durians, then up at the near bare branch. "These aren't yours to take." Trin blinked, confused. "I was going to share them." But Dieu Han wasn't calm. Her voice trembled with worry. Dieu Han stepped closer, her hands clenched tightly. "This house belongs to my aunt," she said, "and that tree gets her income. This season has been terrible already. She only has a few left." Trin's face fell. "I didn't know. I thought you planted them." Dieu Han shook her head. "That's why I never touched them. You should have asked." Trin looked at the fruits on the ground, his stomach tight with guilt. "I just wanted to help," he said softly. Dieu Han's expression softened, but she still sighed deeply. "I know you meant well, but this could cause trouble. If my aunt finds out, she'll think I let you take them. And she won't believe I didn't. This place isn't really mine, Trin. I'm just grateful to be here." Trin stared at the durian in his hands, then suddenly flung it onto the ground. The fruit hit with a dull thud, splitting slightly at the seams. Dieu Han gasped, stepping back. "What are you doing?" she cried. "It's not even ripe. You can't just pick and waste it. Do you know how hard it is just to stay here without being a burden?" Her voice cracked. The fruit was only part of what broke in that moment. Trin's face darkened. "You're overreacting," he muttered. "It's just a stupid fruit." Dieu Han shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "It's not about the fruit. It's about respect." This house isn't mine, but I'm grateful every day I get to stay here. You ruined something that wasn't yours. That's not okay. Her voice was firm now, even as her hands trembled. Trin stepped closer, his voice sharp and cold. So now you're lecturing me, he snapped. I've been helping all day, and this is what I get. Dieu Han stood her ground. Help doesn't mean you own everything. You think money makes it right. Trin's jaw clenched. If it's about money, I can pay for everything. Dieu Han snapped, her voice breaking now. You're being disrespectful to me and to the people who let us stay. Trin laughed bitterly. You think you're so pure, so grateful and selfless. But you hide behind your politeness. Dieu Han stepped back, stunned by his words. What are you even saying? Her voice shook like glass about to break. Before she could react, Trin raised his hand. A harsh slap cut the air. Dieu Han stumbled, her hand flying to her cheek. Then another blow. The room spun. Everything inside her froze. She didn't scream. She just stood there, facing someone she thought she trusted. Tears streamed silently down her face. This wasn't the Trin she knew, or maybe she never truly knew him. Dieu Han didn't say a word. She walked past him slowly, holding her cheek, dignity cracked but still intact. Each step echoed louder than his shouts. She didn't cry out for help. She didn't fall. She just walked into the house, alone. The front gate creaked again. Then and Dan had returned. They saw the broken durian, the silence thick and heavy. Where's Han? Dan asked immediately. Trin said nothing. Still staring at the ground, Dan sensed something wrong. Did something happen? Trin walked away, saying only, don't ask. Then didn't wait, he rushed inside. He found her sitting at the edge of the bed, a shadow of herself. Her hand still rested on her cheek, eyes staring at nothing. Then knelt down, voice barely a whisper. Who did this to you? Dieu Han didn't respond. A single tear slid down, and that was enough. Then stood slowly, his heart pounding like thunder. He clenched his fists. This wasn't over. The engine hummed low as Dan drove Trin away. Neither of them spoke at first, but the tension was loud. Then Trin muttered, she's not as innocent as she looks. Dan glanced sideways. What do you mean? Trin scoffed. She always plays the victim. She knows how to twist things. Dan frowned, uneasy with Trin's tone, but Trin kept talking, poisoning the silence with doubts Dan didn't want to carry. Trin's words lingered like smoke, filling Dan's thoughts. He remembered Dieu Han's gentle smile, her quiet strength. Was that all fake? He didn't want to believe it, but Trin sounded so sure. Dan tightened his grip on the handlebars. He didn't respond. Sometimes silence felt safer than choosing sides, but deep down, he knew he had to decide where his trust really lay. Back at the house, Dan sat quietly beside Dieu Han. The room was hushed, yet filled with unspoken comfort. He didn't ask questions, he didn't force words. Just his presence was enough. Dieu Han leaned slightly toward him, grateful for the silence that didn't demand explanations. She felt his care not through promises, but through stillness. And in that moment, she realized some pain needed no fixing, just someone to sit with it. Then finally spoke, his voice low. You're not alone. Dieu Han didn't reply, but her eyes glistened. The ache in her chest loosened just a little. He placed a warm cup of tea in her hand, as if to say, I'm here for you in ways words can't reach. They sat like that, two hearts scarred but still beating. Outside, the wind brushed the window, but inside, they had found a moment of peace. But how long could peace last? Trin's accusations were already out there. Dan had heard them, and even if he doubted, he might still speak. The weight of false words can crush even honest truths. Would Dieu Han be blamed again for things she never did? And what would then do if pushed to choose between silence and confrontation? The storm hadn't passed, was only shifting. What will happen next as these tangled hearts collide again? Can kindness survive the shadow of doubt? Will truth finally rise, or will silence bury it? You've come this far with Dieu Han, but the journey is only beginning. If you're feeling every beat of this story, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Dieu Han RV. Comment where you're watching from and tell us, what do you believe will happen next?